Hi, this is Stacy with Gooseberry Bridge Farm, and today I'm going to show you what we harvest from the garden. So what I mean by what we harvest from the garden, I did a video a couple years ago called Grocery Haul from the Garden. I'll put that link somewhere, probably at the end of this. So right now it is mid-August, it's August 19th. As you can see, my tomatoes are looking a little bit rough, which is pretty normal here by this time. I expect them to be completely done by September. We have fresh bush beans planted for September, and some over here. These are our older bush beans. You can see all those tomatoes out there I'm getting ready to harvest this morning. They are all blushing or more. So I'm going to get this all picked. I'll show you the baskets and about exactly how much we get from the garden on a day, a week, whatever. I come out here about every 36 to 48 hours to harvest all this at this point. If we're having more issues with like pests or something, or it's going to rain or whatever, then I'll come out a little more often. That dog is driving me crazy. So I am trying to pick beans. I can't really do this one-handed. These are pole beans. They kind of keep producing for a longer time than bush beans, and they kind of produce better in the heat, depending on the variety. This was a new trellis this year. It's a piece of fence on T-posts. Oh, I dropped the bean. Let's see if I can get back where you can see it. You can see the fence in here, and there's posts. The fence went up above the posts and now is curled over that way. So that's kind of a pain. I've also got some loofahs growing on here, so they are weighing it down even more and making it a bit difficult to harvest. See, these are all loofah leaves here. I've done cattle panels before for beans, and it seemed like overkill, but then this is proving to be not enough support. You can see this end is these were later planted beans because I had some issues with germination with my old seeds, so this end is all nice and straight. This is also closer to the end of the fence, and then there's a post every, I don't know, 10 feet or so, but you can see the middle where it is drooping so bad. I also planted peas on this trellis, and that actually worked really well. So I will keep it. I will probably try to sturdy it up a bit because there's some really old beans in here. I'm gonna save these for seed. See these guys, they're big, hard. Anyway, I'm picking quite a lot of beans off of these. I haven't grown this many, pretty flowers. I haven't grown this many pole beans in several years because for canning and preserving, bush beans tend to be a bit more efficient. You can grow a whole bunch of them like all at once, and they are kind of ready all at once. Unlike these that kind of just trickle in all season. So pole beans are generally seen as better to eat fresh, and then bush beans are better for canning. It's kind of like determinate and indeterminate tomatoes, but not quite, because this year my bush beans were happy because it was cooler and we got a lot of rain, and they kept producing way longer than they have other years. But now I have pole beans too. So the other nice thing about pole beans is that you can pick them without bending over. So I'm reaching up above my head to get these. I can see a whole bunch more up there. I'm gonna have to put the phone down to get those. I've already gone down the other side. These are oh, there's a dog. Okay, so anyway, got the beans. This is not all of them. I will show you the basket in a minute, and then we will get the tomatoes And then I will take you guys inside and show you everything we get from the garden every other day or so. This is my first year consistently having to bring out 2 baskets to the garden. Most other years it's just been a day, like a day or two of 2 baskets when the tomatoes are really coming in. But this year I planted, as I showed you, more beans, or more pole beans, so they're kind of an everyday thing. And I also planted almost twice as many tomato plants. So you can see these tomatoes. Here, I'll turn you around. These are San Marzanos. You can see right here, the ones I'm picking, they're a sauce tomato. They're my favorite, and they these plants are hanging in there. Some of them are dead. Some of them are hanging in there. Like this one is still putting on new fruit, which is interesting. These are an indeterminate sauce tomato. They produced a lot this year. They did really well. They really liked the temperatures we had in May, and it helped them set a lot of fruit. So that was good for us. I planted about 25 of them this year. So that's, I'm usually getting about a half basket of these a day or every other day. They make great sauce, but the fungal issues and all the death that you're seeing is from all the rain we've gotten and all the moisture and humidity we have here in Missouri. It's just kind of part of it. Yuck, don't need that one. Part of growing tomatoes here, outside of a tunnel, I don't have anywhere to put these. I can't carry the camera and the tomatoes at the same time, so I keep shoving them in my pocket. But anyway, so you can see how sad these plants are now. If we had a major heat wave, like we did this time last year, we would be in trouble because these plants don't have the shade that they used to from their leaves, and lots of the tomatoes would sunburn. I knocked off a green one and just put it in my basket. That's such a mess around here. Hope that helps you guys feel better, normal. Either normal if you have a mess, or better if you don't. I don't know. But I mean, and this is the one area of tomatoes that I haven't weeded yet. I've also got more beans planted here, and then this is my strawberry patch. I've talked about this in previous videos. We're gonna call it like an ecosystem or something. I mean, you can see the strawberries are in here. I pretty much I cleaned it all out in the spring several times. That's all ragweed. It's lovely. But I can't keep up with it. It's just not worth it at this point. I'm going to take it all out. I'm going to redo my strawberries next year, so I don't need to save them. I just need to deal with it later because priorities. Priorities right now are harvest food, preserve food, and do other things for our business that produce income, not weed the pointless strawberry patch. Oh, look, this loofah has jumped over to the cattle panel. So I've got some beans planted back here. This is where my cucumbers were earlier in the spring, and my cucumbers all died very quickly because of a horrible cucumber beetle infestation. But I planted beans in their place because I knew I still had time, and these are just starting to produce. So I don't need more beans, as you just saw, and all those bush beans I planted, but here we are. I will preserve these beans. I freeze dry most of my beans, and once I get enough freeze dried, which is probably about 80 quarts or so for the year, I then start pressure canning some green beans, just so we have some other options. And we haven't really eaten our pressure canned beans from last year, so I'm not super excited, that giant loofah, about pressure canning more, but we will if we need to. Oh, there's a bunch of squash bugs in there. See them all? Loofahs are really resistant to squash bugs, but they still are here. But I'm hoping they will eat this and not my new squash that I will show you in a minute. Okay, I think I got all the beans. There were some other varieties here. Yeah, see, there's some green ones over here. I think these are volunteers from last year when I planted dry beans here. Okay, so I've got more tomatoes to pick, and then more tomatoes and more tomatoes and more tomatoes. And then I'll show you the whole basket at the end, as I keep mentioning. I'm just making this video harder to edit for myself. I used to have a hanging basket there, but I love all the vines and the bean flowers. I may have planted other beans here. I don't even remember. I was kind of a planting machine there for a while. Now it's switched to harvesting. But I used to do this every day, all the picking, but at this point it's just it's not worth it. It's too much to get it every day, and I will show you when I get inside. I don't have room for all of this in the pantry unless I give myself a little bit more time. Like, I need to pick the tomatoes when they are this green so that I can do things like what I'm doing right now, just like throwing them into the basket. If you throw ripe tomatoes around like this, also I gotta throw my beans. The ripe tomatoes are not gonna stack in the basket as deep without squishing each other. So I still have more to pick from these. There's 10 plants here, I think, maybe 12. And that's all there. And then I still have all of that. And then we have another tomato section in the back. All right, to show you some areas where the tomatoes are doing really, really badly. These are San Marzano plants that are just completely dead. And their fruit, they died so quickly that these are just barely like worth even trying to save. The fruits are just ripening due to stress. Some basil I need to get. And I'm not really sure why they're so bad compared to the rest. But down here we've got some that are a little healthier, and these produced a ton. So it doesn't matter that they died. They produced and produced and produced. And like, oh, look at this one. It's squished between the T-post and the cattle panel and the zip tie. Anyway, they have pulled their weight in the garden, and I don't need them to be alive for the whole season and producing and whatever. That's what succession planting is for. That's what planting enough for the whole year, all at once is for. So I also kind of slacked off on my pruning this year, which you can kind of tell. We did weed this because these are peas that I just planted recently, and there's also a couple of squash plants. There's one right there, summer squash, but it's already looking stressed, and I don't even know if it has yeah, its big leaf is already dead. There's one, ooh, where is it? There it is. And there's another one over here. It's all eaten by squash bugs. It was kind of just an experiment. Planting the squash, I try it every once in a while, but unless I am using pesticides, which I'm not, I don't get fall squash. There's no way. The pest pressure is too great, even if it's not squash bugs or cucumber beetles or vine borers or whatever. Like, regular old stink bugs will eat my squash plants when they're that small. Now I'm hoping that nothing is going to mess with the peas. I planted a whole lot of them. I did not get a good pea harvest this spring. The aphids this year were horrible, despite everything I did to get rid of aphids. I mean, aphids react really well to like soapy water, and there's lots of predators for them. It didn't matter. Everything this year had aphids. Even my young fruit trees, berry bushes, my gooseberries, like the aphids were just outrageous. It got warm really early. The weather was weird. I'm sure it was something to do with that. So why am I talking in front of my weed patch? Anyway, that's why I didn't get a good pea harvest. So when it's cooler, in the spring they do better. So I'm gonna try fall peas. I've got them all along here. They're growing really well right now, and I'm really excited about that. And so far, no aphids. Well, my basket is pretty much full. I've got a couple tomatoes that are cracking in two different ways. There's this one, and this one cracked along the bottom. That is because we didn't get any rain for a while, and then all of a sudden we got like 2 inches of rain. There's a bug in there, but this one is kind of healed over. You can see it's not shiny anymore, so I'll bring it inside. It's also pretty close to ready. It's a pineapple tomato, so they always have a little bit of green and yellow and red, so that one's probably gonna make it. This one I'm not sure. The little fruit flies in the house will potentially get those. Also, my basket is full and I have 2 more rows to do. So I'm gonna walk over here and get past the sweet potatoes and the beans and get my bean and okra basket. I'm gonna try to shove all of these tomatoes in here. What is that, Teddy? Spoon tomatoes. And then we have tomatoes, okra. The beans are under the other tomatoes, so I guess it's just a good tomato day, huh?
Yeah, a lot of tomatoes.
Yeah.
And they're squeezing out of this basket.
Yeah, we need to take them inside. All right, we're inside. Tomatoes. So this is where I keep all our tomatoes. I unloaded the ones that were on top of the beans and okra already, which is leaving me about approximately no space to put any more. I'm trying to squeeze this one in back here. I could clean up a little bit more stuff, but that's not going to leave me enough space for all of the tomatoes in the other basket, which I will show you. There's not much floor space in here. This is where I'm going to put the sauce tomatoes that I picked this morning. Sauce tomatoes, and then I have all these slicers that will probably just stay in the basket for a day or two until we use all of these. I'm keeping the sauce tomatoes in these strawberry baskets that I got, these pint baskets we got from our strawberries. I saved them all. We have hundreds because we bought strawberries. We pretty much buy strawberries every year, even when we grow them. I'm always paranoid that they won't do well, so I buy them when we can get them in from Florida in February or March, and then if we have good strawberries in May and June, then I have those too. Our strawberries are usually smaller, so we freeze dry a lot of strawberries from the ones that we buy, and then we can ours into jam usually. We also can some of the other ones so that we have both. I don't like that the ones we buy are not organic, but it is what it is. Either way, anyway, we end up with tons of these little baskets. I think that this is more efficient than just piling up the tomatoes on the counter, but I'm not positive about that space-wise. But it does make it easier when I'm pulling them out. I can just dump them into a bowl, dump each of the baskets. I kind of sort them by ripeness when they go in, so most of the time they are similarly ripe coming out. These are ripest to greenest here. I keep looking at this trying to figure out how to make more space. So our canned tomatoes already this year, let me scoot over here, the floor is just covered with stuff. We've got our Azure order from last month. These crates right here are all full of freeze-dried foods that I need to put on the shelves. This is squash. We've got tomatoes here, cherry tomatoes, watermelon, beans. There's a whole bunch of corn in here somewhere and some other stuff. But I mean, it's all these crates. And then I've got my dry beans up here that I harvested. Haven't gotten them all out of the shelves yet, obviously. back there. So there, I've also got like 2 years ago's beans not shelled, and that's what this bag is full of, is unshelled beans. Those crates are all full of freeze-dried foods from other years. That's kind of like our emergency food that's in Mylar with oxygen absorbers that we can leave long-term, since freeze-dried food lasts up to 25 years or 30 years, depending on what it is. Anyway, so this is our, what I'm calling our tomato shelves. This is the end of the pantry. You can see there's one side of shelves, here's the other side. So my goal is to fill up this bottom shelf with tomato soup and salsa in pints. So that right there, those 2 little rows, is our last sauce from last year. And so I need to get that used or eaten. And then this is salsa from this year. This is all tomato basil soup, which is basically salsa without the spicy peppers and with more basil. It's what we call tomato soup. This is all regular tomato sauce, almost all quarts. We have a few pints in there. There's a little bit of freeze-dried peppers over here on the end, and then this is freeze-dried tomatoes that I'm planning to try to make into ketchup at some point. And then we've also got some canned beans, canned onion soup, and canned potatoes from last year. I'm not sure what that is back there. It looks like apple pie filling. We've got just some other random stuff on the shelf. So that shelf will be cleaned off and be all tomato sauce by the end of the year. I'll move this other stuff somewhere else. I'm gonna have to clean out, this is all loofahs up here that I've grown over the years. So that's gonna have to go, because that's gonna have to be canned food. Almost fell off my pile of salt. Anyway, up there I've got some older things of hot sauce and some water glass eggs. My brain. Anyway, those are staying. That will move. This is usually where I keep my herb salts, but I'm gonna move all that. There's honey up there, that's going somewhere else. And then there's other freeze-dried stuff up there, like broth and greens powder. So down here, this is our mostly freeze-dried stuff that we didn't eat from last year. And then this is all this year's squash. This is this year's canned potatoes. There's gonna be about twice that many when we're all done. And then we haven't even started onions yet. Our freeze-dried onions from last year, the last of what we have is right here, but we did have like a whole big section. We use a lot of the freeze-dried onions. Right now we have, I'll show you the onions in a minute. There's a ton of onions in my dining room, but we're gonna do onions there. This is all pumpkin powder for the pumpkin bread. We've canned a bunch of peaches this spring or early summer. This is the strawberries I was talking about. Cherry tomatoes and peppers, mostly from last year. Freeze-dried peaches, freeze-dried strawberries. Those are just for snacks. And this is mostly jams and jellies. Lavender, not sure what that's about. Oh, and applesauce is right here. And then this is a whole bunch of peppers. Anyway, I'm trying to get this all organized so that we can move these foods up. On this side, we do have crates that kind of pull out, so we can have more different sizes of jars. These are like mostly freeze-dried herbs, spices, beans, not freeze-dried, but the herbs are freeze-dried or regular dehydrated, like this is just calendula. But then also in here, there are a lot of jars, like these are lima beans. There's jars, beans, when the beans are done, they will go in here. I've got some other stuff here, like food from the store, plastic Ziploc bags, that sort of thing. I'm working on a way to move that somewhere else. We're not sure. This down here is usually all our buckets of bulk grains, but it's kind of a mess right now. Hey, there's another basket. I didn't know that was there. Anyway, it all kind of gets behind when we're doing this. All right, onions that needed to be freeze-dried eventually. We move over to the other side of the dining room. There are more onions, and this is all our garlic. I was considering braiding that. See, it's down in there, but we had to move it in here. It was cured outside, but now it's time to be indoors. If we had a root cellar, it would be in there, but it's not. All right, so the counter is officially full. I put a bowl of San Marzanos down here. I have a box of extra slicers over here. These are at the bottom of the pile, and they all kind of have like some bruises. That's the downside of the basket. It does sometimes injure some of the lower level tomatoes. I try to stack them so that doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. I didn't even pick peppers today, but those are peppers and eggplants. I probably need to go through those because I also have this bowl, and some of these are looking a little rough. There's some gnats in there, so we've been just chopping the peppers up and putting them either in the fridge or the freezer until we're making salsa, and then they're ready to go. All these plates up here, just in case you notice them, are seeds that I've been saving. I've got some peppers, some zinnias. This is dried chamomile, the last of it probably. I've done a lot of that this season. So, all right, well, that, and also the beans. I haven't even done the beans, but you saw the beans. There's a lot. So we're gonna put the beans in the fridge and the okra. Okra goes better in the refrigerator. And I've always said for years that if our family could live off of tomatoes and green beans, I could probably manage that. I'm gonna add okra to that list and probably dry beans. But gardening for grains and stuff is a little bit more difficult. We do have popcorn growing this year, so we'll see how that does. I've grown it before and it's done really well, but I've never tried this many plants. I usually do like 10 or 15 popcorn plants and they've done really well, but this year I did about 200. So we'll see. I'm also going to try, if the popcorn does well, I'm thinking I'll alternate popcorn and dent corn for cornmeal, and we'll try to grow that ourselves. I was going to do a little more of this video, but it is finally raining today. I'm going to show you a little bit of the rain, and then I will see you next time.